Welcome back to Up in the Air. I'm Meredith Fish.
And I'm Amanda Reynolds.
Weather this week has been a roller coaster ride with the swing in temperatures over the past few days.
Yeah, we reached 60 degrees one day this week, with others forecasted a high in the 30s.
It has been quite variable for sure, which makes sense since this fluctuation is actually quite normal for this time of year.
Well, hopefully it will begin to even out more sometime soon. Moving on to tonight's show, we have a lot to cover.
We'll be covering the rising Great Lake levels, water issues, and the relation between hurricanes in the Saharan Desert.
For now, this is Update in the Air. While much of the eastern United States has been battered by bitter cold so far this year, this has not been the trend around the world. So far in 2015, global temperatures are nearly 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the 20th century average. This is coupled with the fact that the first 2 months of 2015 are already about 0.5 degree warmer than in 2014, the warmest year on record so far. The main pockets of warmer air were over the western United States, most of Russia, and parts of Scandinavia, while the eastern United States was the only pocket of significantly colder air. This is different than last year, in which the most warm areas were over the oceans, particularly the Pacific and the Indian Oceans. No matter the outcome of the remainder of 2015, this warming trend is definitely something to keep an eye on in the future.
The past 2 years, water levels on Lake Superior and Lake Michigan-Huron rose at a remarkable rate. This surge represents one of the most rapid rates of water level change in recorded history for this area. It also marks the end of an unprecedented period of below-average water levels that began in 1998. Changes in water levels affect waterway navigability, hydropower generation, and tourism. Lake Superior rose 0.6 meters from January 2013 to December 2014, with Lake Michigan-Huron rising 1 meter, with those levels being either recorded setting or near record-setting levels. This surge has become a relief to the system and economic centers stressed by hydrologic extremes. With uncertainty in the future for water levels, many are happy that water levels are expected to persist throughout the summer.
Melting ice in Greenland may be having a phenomenal effect on ocean circulation. A new study done by many atmospheric science researchers, including Penn State's own Dr. Michael Mann, shows that as global temperatures are rising, ice near Greenland is melting, causing colder water to end up in the ocean, resulting in a downturn of ocean circulation. The Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, also known as the AMOC, has been slowing down rapidly since the 1970s. In the past 10 years, a recovery began, but is now back in a steep downslope. Mann said that the downslope of the AMOC in 1970 looked like an aborted collapse, and that a full-on collapse could be possible in the decades ahead. Mann expressed concerns about the fishing industry, as areas in the North Atlantic tend to be the most productive region for fishing and would likely be the most affected.
As World Water Day passed on March 22nd, much of the West is bracing for another dry year. Historically low snowpack in mountains along the West Coast heighten concerns over drought as water resource managers make plans for low river flows. In California, 30% of summer water comes from the snowpack, but with California's snowpack hovering around 13% of normal, water managers are not expecting much water from the snowpack this summer. Due to concerns over water, the state has extended water restrictions to include a requirement that restaurants can only give water to customers who ask for it, as well as many others. Southern California has also paid the highest price ever for water from farmers in the north at $700 per acre foot. The El Niño that hasn't developed was also a disappointment for the state, which usually receives an influx of precipitation during this phenomenon. We will continue to monitor the drought and hope the best for the West Coast states.
Canada and California are teaming up to combat climate change. Both areas are utilizing a cap-and-trade system that allows the holder of a pollution allowance permit to emit a certain amount of a pollutant into the air. These two areas specifically held auctions one Wednesday in February for companies to buy a pollution allowance of 1 ton of carbon dioxide. While the concept seems strange, it not only raises money to help fund environmental projects, but it also encourages companies to find alternatives to releasing the harmful gases into the air. This general concept is now being put into place around the world in hopes of eventually linking all of the cap-and-trade systems into one large system for the entire world. If even just all 50 U.S. states were able to create systems and link them together, it would be cheaper for them to work together to comply with upcoming power plant pollution rules, such as by creating and linking carbon markets, than if each of the states tried to comply with the new rules alone.
After the legendary winter of 2015, many children in Massachusetts might be going to school until the end of June. The typical school year for students is 180 days, with schools adding 5 snow days into the calendar, totaling a 185-day calendar. However, this winter, many school districts are dealing with more than 5 snow days already, with no guarantee that there won't be more snow ahead. Weymouth High School and all Quincy schools had racked up 11 snow days, with Boston and Lowell with 8. Boston has already extended their school year to June 30th, while some schools are preparing to have school on Saturdays instead of extending further into June. The Commissioner of Education has stuck to his ideal of sending kids to school for the full 180 days, but now he is reconsidering given the extreme circumstances of this winter. That is all for this week's Update in the Air. Up in the Air will be back in a moment with more.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Update in the Air.
Now, the Weather Risk Management class at Penn State will give us an insight into the natural gas and soybean market.
This week, Hannah Seeger and our own JP Nicola will give us the current update into these market commodities.
Hello and welcome to the market analysis segment of Up in the Air for the week March 15th. I'm JP Nicola and will be providing an analysis of soybean futures prices.
And I'm Hannah Seeger, and we'll be giving the natural gas future analysis. These are 2 very weather-sensitive commodities, and therefore we hope to elaborate on how the weather patterns will affect prices in the future. JP will now take it away with the soybean analysis.
Soybean meal futures hit their lowest price in nearly 5 months last Wednesday at $317.2. This is much in part to the ample supply in South America. In fact, farmers in Argentina have held in reserve about twice the amount of soybeans this year compared to last, thanks to high inflation and low world soybean prices. As was noted last week, the soybean meal futures for May 2015 continue to remain below the 20-day average of $331 at around $325. Stocks in South America continue to look attractive with the strengthening U.S. dollar. Argentine and Brazilian currency continue to weaken to the U.S. dollar, but have leveled out over the past week. The leveling out could help world exports of dollar-dominated commodities by making them look more affordable to buyers in other currencies. This could be a potential reason for the rise in futures prices last week. With Brazil and Argentina harvest underway, the U.S. is now losing exports due to the affordability of South American soybean meal, and might even see cancellations in the coming export sales reports. From a weather perspective, below-average rainfall over the past week in the growing regions have been favorable for the harvest period. This trend looks to continue in southern Brazil and Argentina, coupled with cooler, below-average temperatures. In Mato Grosso, however, wetter conditions along with average temperatures are being forecasted. Off to Hannah with the natural gas report.
1. As the winter comes to an end, natural gas traders are looking closely at the weather to see where the prices will take them in the next few weeks. Last week, prices took sharp turns with a low on March 16th at 2.754 and a high of 2.982 on March 18th. This was a result of some spring weather peeking through right before a late-week storm system brought some snow to the northeast on March 20th, which caused the prices to rise. Forecasting weather maps were updated this past Friday, which showed temperatures to remain mostly normal for the U.S. for the next 4 weeks. Although it shows temperatures below average in the northeast, climatological averages for this time of year will minimize the heating demands caused by shots of cold air. As seen from the wind chill map for the end of March, the country could see temperatures well below normal in the mid-Atlantic, which could result in a spike of heating demand. On Thursday, natural gas prices lost nearly 4% after government data shows that U.S. natural gas supplies fell less than expected last week. the natural gas withdrawal was 45 billion cubic feet. The storage is approximately 507 BCF higher than it was this time a year ago, but still 161 BCF lower than it was in the 5-year average. As the expiration date of the natural gas futures gets closer, the price is expected to become more volatile. Therefore, close attention should be paid to the temperature outlooks across the Great Lakes and Northeast due to population and heating demands.
We hope you enjoyed this week's market analysis and found the content informative.
Be sure to tune in next week for more news on the current state of natural gas and soybean markets.
For Up in the Air, I'm JP Nicola.
And I'm Hannah Seeger.
Thanks for joining us again.
We would now like to introduce the work of the Weather Communications course here at Penn State.
Michael Prianti will explain the relationship between hurricanes and the Saharan desert.
What does a hurricane have in common with a desert? Not a lot, but it turns out that deserts, especially the Sahara Desert in northern Africa, play an important role in the formation of hurricanes in the eastern Atlantic. During the summer months, northern Africa tends to get hot, and I mean really hot. However, places just to their south tend to stay cool and moist. This stark temperature difference causes air to rapidly ascend, forming an area of fast-moving winds. This area of fast-moving winds is commonly known as the African Easterly Jet Stream. This jet stream carries winds east to west, picking up warm, moist air along the African coast, creating clusters of thunderstorms. Now here is an example of the jet stream doing its dirty work. This is an infrared satellite image showing thunderstorms forming off the coast of Africa. The reds and the yellows indicate very cold and high cloud tops, which are signs of healthy, strong thunderstorms. These thunderstorms will go on to be the seeds of future tropical storms and hurricanes. The Eastern African jet stream can also hinder tropical storm development off the African coast. If the jet stream becomes too strong, the fast winds carry large amounts of dust, as seen here by the orange haze on this satellite image. These dust particles prevent the warm, moist air from rising too high, causing fewer thunderstorms to develop. Without these strong thunderstorms, tropical storms are less likely to form off the coast. Whether or not tropical storms form off the coast of Africa, we at least know that some of our destructive friends have a dusty past. For Up in the Air, I'm Michael Prianti.
Thanks for tuning back in.
Ryan Breton is standing by at our climate wall to give us the 8 to 14 day outlook.
Take it away, Ryan.
Thanks very much, Meredith and Amanda. That's right. We're now into officially spring here in central Pennsylvania. Although the weather hasn't changed too much, it's still been a fairly cold pattern. And at least in the near term, there's no sign of any changes in that weather pattern. You know, last Friday, we actually had some snow here at State College. And as a result, we're now to 52 inches of snow so far this season, matching the total snow that we saw last season. So now we are 2 seasons in a row with above average snowfall here in State College. In terms of the snow cover around a lot of the nation, it is decreasing, a sign that we are heading out of winter and advancing into spring. Only about 17% of the nation covered in snow, and a month ago that number was closer to 57. So we are doing quite better here now that we're in the later part of March. In terms of the temperature outlook for the period April 1st to the 7th, so the first week of April, we are still expecting below normal temperatures to remain through a lot of the eastern seaboard and into the Midwest as well. There is some signs of warming, though, on parts of the East Coast. That is down here through the Gulf Coast, above normal through Florida and the southern states, and the well above normal air likely to remain out through the West Coast, where once again we are projecting temperatures to be above to perhaps even well above normal through parts of the West. In terms of the precipitation, above normal precipitation expected in addition to the below normal temperatures through a lot of the eastern part of the nation. So even though we are getting into April, we're still going to have to watch for the possibility of some wintry weather, despite the fact that temperatures and average temperatures are now warming during this time of the year. It'll be below normal, though. Same story out here through the west, through the Four Corners. Below normal precipitation expected through the period April 1st through April 7th. So that's our update for this week. We'll be back next week with another update.
Thanks, Ryan. Unfortunately, it looks like the cold will be persisting some more into the near future.
Unfortunately not. That's all we have for this week.
As always, thanks for joining us, and thank you to the Penn State students for contributing to the show.
Tune in next week to catch another episode, but for now, I'm Amanda Reynolds.
And I'm Meredith Fish. See you next time, Up in the Air.